and that's how long it's taken me just to go through the proofs. But putting the corrections in isn't so difficult. And so actually, it's learning a good skill because Quark, I didn't even know there was such a program, is the program all publishing companies use to put the manuscript into its final form. So it's really pretty exciting to be able to master that. So if it's not, if you want to talk to me after the break or afterwards, I'd be used 2 or 3 people to help us out. And then, so the rest as far as the scrolls go, I think the main thing is that the Bible manuscripts they have more or less agree with the ones we have. I mean, in content. There's occasional different reading here or there, but what's impressive is, I'm not talking about the New Testament because we don't have New Testament documents there. But what's impressive is that the Bible we have that came down mostly through Judeo-Christian hands, this Bible we're using is a Catholic Bible, but the Protestants use actually a Jewish Bible. It was part of the Reformation to go to the original source, not to go to the church to find out what the reading should be. And the Catholic Bible is based on a Greek translation, the Septuagint, which was done in Egypt around the 1st or 2nd century BC. So it has more books. That's why we have extra books here. But that doesn't mean it's it's not as accurate as the Jewish one. But in some cases, the reading of the Greek Bible, which really the Greek Bible, is closer to the Dead Sea Scrolls reading of a given passage. But most of, I would say 95% of the readings follow what they call the Masoretic text, the rabbinic text. The earliest one of those they had was done in Syria in the 10th century AD. So this is older by 10 centuries. These documents are older by 10 centuries than any Hebrew manuscript we have of the Old Testament. But I don't work so much on the biblical manuscripts because the biblical manuscripts are, as I said, more or less the same, an occasional difference here or there. And we know those. What interests me is those documents we never saw before, things that they consider to be holy and relevant. And that's, to interpret those has been the issue. Yeah.
Just a quick question. So like books like the Tobit and the Maccabees, they're not in the Dead Sea, part of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
No.
Those were...
No, but the books that you've never heard of, well, Tobit is, I think, Maccabees is. Some books are, some books aren't. There's not a Bible there. You've got, scrolls. Every book here in the Bible is a scroll. So basically, somebody sat down and put them together as a book, ultimately. And that was done after the war against Rome in the final form that we have it. So the Jews did it because, in a way, they thought that the manuscripts were going to disappear or be lost. The rabbis who survived the war against Rome, which there's a series now on HBO called Rome. I mean, it's a popular soap opera version of the events surrounding Caesar and Mark Antony and the civil wars in Rome, but it's done from a soap opera lower level, following characters who are. It's pretty good because it's about Rome, but you see how brutal the times were, and you can well understand how they would have pulverized, decimated, completely crushed a messianic movement, which is what they did. And our gospel, New Testament material, are materials that were acceptable to them to some extent, not completely obviously, but to some extent, were not, and written by people who were not pulverized. But most of the people who were part of the Messianic movement in Palestine were pulverized. And that's what the scrolls are. They represent a literature that everyone who wrote it was killed. Nobody could come back to get it because nobody could have. Because the documents were very valuable. They were written on parchment, and anyone who knew about them would have certainly later on, when there was better times, would come back with a wheelbarrow and get them. That means every single person who had any knowledge of them was killed, or was unable to get back because they had been transported somewhere so far away as slavery or something else. There was no way they could ever get back. I think that the people who committed suicide on a place called Masada, you may have heard of that, 30 miles south of the Dead Sea Scrolls, I think that's where most of them went and killed themselves when they were under siege. I think that's the people who ultimately did write these documents, and I don't think many people did survive to tell the tale. Certainly, as I said, no one survived who came who could come back. So what it is that you have a time capsule of literature that's come back to haunt us from the past. picture of the times, more authentic than anything that we ever had before, because it didn't go through any editorial processes of the Roman Empire or anything afterwards, and it wasn't written. It wasn't written after the events in question. It was really written before the events in question. So the Bible, and again, back to the books of the Bible, yeah, there are books in the Apocrypha there, like Tobit, I think is there. But there are also books you've never heard of, but I mean, seen. Enoch, for instance, very book found in multiple copies. Jubilees, book found in multiple copies. They clearly saw that as part of their Bible. So why didn't it get into our Bible? Well, because the rabbis who compiled this thing after the fall of the temple were very upset about the war. Sort of like the Sunni authorities in Iraq today. They're very upset about the war, and they blamed the revolutionaries for the disaster that had happened. Therefore, they really did get rid of all the books they considered to be incendiary, and compiled a fairly, well, it's not mild, but a pretty harmless document, if you want to call it that, in terms of revolutionary behavior patterns. And books like the Maccabee books they considered to be insightful, and therefore they chucked them out. They didn't like the Maccabees. And that weird, Jews celebrate Hanukkah, Christians don't. The Christians, Catholics have the Maccabee books, and Jews don't. So that's how contradictory things can get because of these kind of contradictions. Yeah, that's what you wanted me to talk about, huh? You're a tricky guy. Yeah.
For the books you said that were added, or you said that were not there, were like Enoch. Was it like the?
What do you mean not there? Not in our Bible.
I mean the that you found.
They're there, yeah, they're there in multiple
Was it
copies.
like first, second? I just was reading that. First, second, third Enoch, or was
Oh, there's a lot. You'll have to study it up because you have to look at the parallels. I think mostly it's fourth Enoch that's there, but I'm not a big Enoch specialist. A lot of the Enoch books came down through Ethiopian sources and Syriac Christian, or I don't know where the different churches they found these things, mostly in Ethiopia, things like that. And the document that was found does not agree with the Dead Sea Scroll copy, only parts of it were found in the scrolls. But that's the whole work. You can look online, find that's been edited, the Enoch materials. You can look at the parallels to what you're reading and see what's there and what isn't there. Mostly it's, I think, the fourth part of Enoch that is in the scrolls. Yeah, not a big. Jubilees is all there. And they used a calendar that was like Jubilees. Anyway, I don't get into all that. It's another area. But if you're reading Enoch, it's fine. Enoch fits in with the Daniel literature. Now, you see, the Jews treated Daniel different than the Christians because Christianity